Good day to all of you. So today we are going to discuss about different types of research papers. Now, if you have gone through my previous videos, you have noticed that we have done multiple discussions about basic principles in research. And in addition to that, we also have discussed a little bit about some quantitative analysis as well. And also we have discussed a little bit about fundamentals. I can't say fundamentals, maybe basics of qualitative research as well. So it's fair to say right now that we have some good understanding about how research works. Now, the thing is, from this point onwards, we need to discuss what are the types of research papers that are available for us to, go ahead and do. Now, there are multiple paper types. And I'm going to consider only 4 different types of research papers today. So let's actually, discuss those. But in addition to that, through this video, I'm not trying to say that there are only 4 types of research papers. There are multiple types of research papers. Depending on your interest and your intentions, you can write. But I'm going to limit our discussion just for, 4 types. And those 4 types are going to be review papers, then introspective reports, qualitative research reports, and then document reviews. And those are the main 4 that I'll be discussing. But I will also introduce you what exactly is a action research report as well. So altogether 5, but I'm going to focus mostly on the first 4 types that I told you. And in each of those research reports, I am going to help you understand the purpose and also the structure of the papers. And also I'll be telling you the strengths and weaknesses of each approach as well. Now, I think without further ado, let's dive right into one of the research papers. Okay, so here is one paper that I wrote. So I could have used other papers as well from other researchers, but then again, the issue is I don't know whether it would be uh, right for me to share those things in my own channel. That would create unnecessary issues. So I'm going to just limit myself to papers that I have authored myself. And okay, this is our first paper. This is a review paper. Now let's ask this question: why would anyone need to write a review paper? Now, there are different types of review papers as well. For example, if you go through some journals, some experts in the field, they review books written by other experts. That's a review paper. And sometimes we write papers about certain problems in the society. That also could be a review paper. But the 2 review papers that I mentioned are 2 different types of review papers. Now, here in this one, what I tried to do was I tried to demonstrate the existence of a particular problem. Now, I wrote this paper as part of my PhD. So I did a study on the overall PhD was about focusing on minority students' leadership in state campuses or state universities. So we explored how exactly those things work. We explored about language difficulties and so on. But as part of that entire process, one of the requirements for me was to document that there is actually a problem. So while we were working on the PhD, when we actually went through our initial proposal stage, and then once we started to do some of our data collection, we already had the proposals that we have written. And I think I had my first 3 chapters, Introduction, Literature Review, and Methods, completed at that time. So we decided to get the literature that we have already collected to write our first 2 chapters and then write about the problem at hand. So writing about this problem, we did it using a review paper. So one could say it's a commentary of the problem as well, but generally speaking, what we did was introducing to the audience the problem that we are planning on exploring. So if you go through this paper, this entire paper talks about how deep this problem is. So if you go through the research, the title says the challenges of Sri Lankan minority leadership in the state university. So problem is very clear. we are saying basically about challenges in the university system for minority students to go for leadership opportunities. And there we'll be specifically focusing on equity and equality. Those are the two concepts that we are interested in understanding here. So this is the general purpose of this kind of a review paper, to help audience understand a specific problem. And here it's very important. Why? Because when people read your work, they will give important feedback to you. And that feedback will help you to further develop your study as well. But before we go through that, now we know the purpose, so let's get to the basic structure. So a review paper should have the basic structure of a research report. So if you see, we have an abstract, and here we have given author information. There we have a DOI, volume numbers, issue numbers, year of publication, and all of that. And then here we have given some keywords as well: minority groups, equality, diversity, leadership, equity. So these keywords will help other readers, locate my paper. Now, here the structuring of these papers is slightly different. You don't necessarily need to follow the IMRAD, that is introduction, method, results, and discussion. That structure you can't 100% have in a review report. And even if you follow a similar method, you can still go ahead and try to change some of the ways that you use the title. Now if you look at this paper, I have the introduction where I have introduced the problem. And mostly, these things have a little bit of background. So here, if you notice, I have written about 2 pages on the background of the issue that we are dealing with. And then I have given here a method. Now, a review paper doesn't come into being just because you decide to write about a problem. But readers need to know, okay, how did you know there is a problem? So then the way you use to search the problem should also be systematic. So that system has to be explained. So that is why we have a method section here. For example, to demonstrate a gap in the literature that we have, I have, go ahead and done some review of literature. So when I did review the literature, I must have used some system. So I have used certain keywords. So here I have given some keywords. Using these keywords, I have gone to research databases. And from these databases, I have found all the contemporary papers and the past papers, so that I could get a good understanding about how this problem has spanned across time. Now, technically speaking, from 1948 onwards, we need to have information about what has happened to minority groups and what is the present status right now. So you need to, when you write a review paper, you need to review your literature. And reviewing literature is no easy task. One could think, okay, I'm going to review just 20 papers and okay, that's it. No, you have to review papers as much as possible, because you need to know every little thing about what is happening in that particular area that you have chosen. So because we are interested in seeing and understanding arguments towards our understanding of the problem, arguments against our understanding of the problem, alternative perspectives to the problem. Likewise, we need to have quite a lot of information. So here we have given a basic method. Okay, now this has to be once again distinguished from a systematic literature review. A systematic literature review is also a form of paper where you are reviewing literature in a systematic way. There, if you go through, now I don't have a systematic literature review here, but if you go through the methodology, there they have a particular checklist that they use. So I'm not going to explain about a systematic literature review today, but in a later day I will explain that. But it would be more systematic compared to what you are seeing right now, because this one has a general structure and a general very simple methodological section or methodology section. But compared to this, a systematic literature review would have a much more rigorous system in terms of how are you going to select the papers, and what were the quality criteria involved, how many papers finally you selected, what are the basic findings of those papers. Likewise, So you have to give some information there. Now here I haven't done that. We have given some introduction, like which is the background, and from there we have gone to the basic methods. Now, after the methods, I have given some findings. So if I remember correctly, I think we had downloaded about 100 to 150 or so papers that are highly relevant. And upon reading, in terms of understanding the challenges minority students face in the pursuit of leadership in state campuses, we identified a couple of major problems. Now, in our original draft that we wrote, under these findings, we listed about 5 findings. But then after a few amendments, we pretty much concatenated it to 2 major findings. So one of our first findings was equity of resources. So equity of resources was something that we noticed by reading multiple research papers. It was mentioned that the resources are sparsely or distributed or among campuses, or it's not distributed consistently across campuses. So that was something that we wrote here, and we have given evidence from contemporary research places, research databases and corporate authorities as well to substantiate our claims. And at the same time, now, if you notice this finding, we have actually, written quite a lot about this particular finding. And at the same time, our second finding was equality in education and opportunities. So we also found that there are some issues in terms of the equality in education for minority groups. And so we wrote about that as well. So this is also based on the literature that we have gathered. So I haven't done a research per se, in terms of I haven't collected data by doing a research, but there are a lot of other researchers who have done their own studies. So I went through their studies to understand more about the issue that I am exploring, because sometimes they may have not done the exact same study, but they have done other different studies. But their results, when I combine them together, might indicate some answers to the problem that I am interested in understanding. And more than understanding here, my issue was to show that this problem is a legitimate problem. Access to leadership by minority students is limited. That's the thing that I wanted to say here. And I'm using such demonstration to further implement or further tell the audience that, look, there is a legitimate problem like this, and I'm interested in exploring it further. So this entire paper is to tell an audience that I am interested in doing this research and exploring, and here's why I think this research has to be explored. And based on that, I have given a conclusion. I have given a conclusion further explaining why I think I need to do this study. So this is how you would write a review paper. So if you notice, it doesn't necessarily have the usual components that you would find in research paper, but still it has a bit of a system. It has abstract, it has a method section, it has an introduction, a method section, and some basic findings. So this is very important even when you write a research report as well. If you want to write a review report, you have to make sure the review report actually contains a particular structure, because if not, your paper is not structured. It might look like a research proposal only if you only have introduction and some literature and a method. And now, when I originally wrote this paper, I hadn't included the method. So then, in the first round of review, they told me, "Look, you have helped us understand a problem, but then you need to include a method. Without a method, you can't write this." So I think this paper we amended for almost 5 months, and this is a very special paper for me as well, because I have written simpler papers earlier, but this was one of the first papers that I wrote to kind of fully understand the quality that is required to write a paper at doctoral level. So I think in that sense, this was a very good paper. And I always encourage my students to understand these things in their undergraduate years itself, so that they will be better prepared to their postgraduate studies. Now, this is our review paper. So the first type of papers is now done. Now with this, I'm going to, introduce you to another type of papers. Now this is a highly subjective report, and this is actually, this is an introspective report. Now, let's understand why exactly one need to have an introspective report. Now, as psychologists in our field, it's very important that we kind of revisit our thought process while we work with people. When I work with someone, sometimes I sense that I tend to be judgy. I tend to, falsely attribute certain things. Sometimes my stereotypes come in the way and things like that. So there needs to be some amount of self-awareness that we all need to have. But getting this kind of self-awareness is no easy feat. So we are still learning, and everyone that I know is also still learning. We are not enlightened people. So then again, yeah, there is a bit of a learning curve. Now, to demonstrate how exactly such a uh, introspective process work, I wrote a research report. This research report has three cases in which I have reflected my experience working with them. It's a form of introspection as well, because I try to dissect and analyze my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions to understand more about the specific kind of training I would need to become an effective psychotherapist. Now, if you notice, this is also once again a research paper, but based on my personal understanding of things. So here I haven't reviewed too much of literature. Wherever it is applicable, I have cited from some literature from the databases. But other than that, this is mostly a personal thing, like how I feel about something. So it's a highly subjective report. You can't use this for a scientific, conference or something like that. No, you can't use. But this has great value for a therapist or a practitioner to understand what kind of problems that we go through. What are the challenges in our professional practice? So if you can analyze multiple introspective reports of a variety of therapists, then that will pretty much inform you about certain problems in the field. So that was the main reason why I decided to write this paper. So if you go through this paper here, it has the name Introspection, Reflection, Qualia, and Consciousness, Making Sense of an 80-hour Psychotherapy Internship. When I did my first MSc in psychology, I did a small internship in a government hospital, mostly observation. But it was my first sense of reality, understanding how suffering works. And then based on that, I actually produced a report for a coursework back in 2015. Yes, 2015. And 8 years later, I actually came across the same report. And now, with the new skills that I have acquired in writing, I decided to transform this report to a proper research report. So here also you will notice there's an abstract written. I have given some keywords, and here I have given a basic introduction. Now, unlike a usual introduction, here in this report, I have introduced about my experience in this internship, what was this internship, and so on and so on. Just some basic descriptive information so that you can visualize what exactly was happening. And then I have given a separate subsection about the internship itself, like what were the things that I observed within that internship. Earlier, the previous section was mainly about a little bit of a brief about myself and all of that, and what made me consider the internship. But here it's an explanation about the internship and my key learnings throughout the internship. What did I learn about mood disorders? What did I learn about the general nature of suffering in people? And how did I get first-hand experience into a little bit of reality in psychological problems? So I have written about those, and if you notice, wherever applicable, I have given some citations as well. And I really love this paper for some reason. Uh, and one of those reasons is when I uploaded this into my ResearchGate account, I actually received a message from one of the authors that I have cited. and he sent me a message saying this is a well-written paper, and this kind of introspective reports are very important, especially in the field of counseling. And very recently, I had this discussion with another person as well, where we were told, don't worry too much about like the Scopus Q1, Q2, Q3, like those kind of things. But what matters the most is whether people enjoy reading your work and whether you have citations. So the target needs to be to improve the quality of what you write, not to show certain quantities. So I think these kind of things are very important. Now, very similar to the previous review report that we discussed here, also I have included the method. Now, I am writing about my personal thoughts, but what's the method I use? Here, I have given 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph explains a little bit about the method that I use. In the first, I explain about what are subjective experiences, how understanding subjective experiences get people to know more about how human consciousness, like the process, how it works. And in the second paragraph, I have explained how exactly philosophers and psychologists try to understand subjective experiences through introspection, and what are the differences of such subjective systems compared to the scientific method. What is the kind of theory that I have, grounded this entire process in. Now, here we have used introspection and through a phenomenological framework. So there I have actually explained this. And then I have also explained about in the third paragraph how the Gibbs reflective cycle works, because I have used this Gibbs reflective cycle to understand more about my personal experiences. So the method can't be uh, chunked down to a small video like this, but I would really encourage you guys to spend time reading this paper, because here we have sort of deviated from our normal scientifically rigorous kind of research report writing, and here this is mainly about analyzing our subjective experiences. But even to analyze subjective experiences, you need to have a system. Without a system, you can't go ahead and do that. Okay. And then findings. Under findings, I have given different uh, titles. Each title corresponds to a specific case. So, an inebriated monkhood is about a monk that I met while I was doing my internship, and I have mentioned here the case by describing, by talking about my feelings, by evaluating my feelings and analyzing them, coming to a conclusion with an action plan for my future. So now, this is very different from other research papers, because this is about me understanding what I have done and something that I was not previously aware of. But after this analysis, now I have gotten some awareness about the problem. A mother's loss is my second case, and my third case is a couple at the tug of war. And then, based on this, I have given a discussion as well. What did I learn from analyzing these cases? How did this help me to understand more about my practice as a therapist, and how did the chosen theory help me in terms of interpreting my subjective experiences? So I have used phenomenology, I have touched upon, I have done some theoretical connections here, and also how exactly I'm going to improve myself for the future. So what kind of training needs I need to have to improve myself? So this is a paper, we wrote for that exact purpose. This is available on our journal website, even Journal of Contemporary Research. I would encourage you guys to either read it from here or through ResearchGate. So I downloaded this from ResearchGate. So please take some time to, read this. I'm saying because I wrote it, but I felt like, it's a good paper. Okay. So that is that. Now we have completed 2 types of papers. Now let's go to the third one. The third one is actually a qualitative research report. Now let me show that to you as well. Now this is a qualitative research report. Now this follows the basic IMRAD introduction method, results and discussion sections. And I'll quickly take you through the sections. Now this is also a paper I wrote as part of my PhD. And then here I wrote actually 2 papers based on the data that I have collected from my study. This is one of the papers. Here we actually discuss how to bring how to develop a cohesive student body within state universities by implementing policies on diversity and inclusion. And at the same time, I'm explaining how that can be utilized to uh, develop an alternative strategy or a policy to improve post-war reconciliation systems in the country. Uh, it took me 8 to 9 months to write this paper. This paper went through quite a lot of amendments. First time I tried to submit this, it got rejected, but we improved this paper significantly during that time. It got rejected in the second attempt as well, but third one I somehow managed to get this thing published. So there's the abstract keywords and introduction. In this introduction, I have given a basic background about the problem. And if you see, the basic introduction is an introduction to the problem, but I have a separate section for background of the problem as well. And here, unlike other papers, you have a theoretical framework. Now, doing a qualitative research, the purpose is to explore the problem. Now, in my review paper, I told this particular problem needs to be researched, but here I have actually researched. Now, for me to research what was the theories that I used, so I have put a theoretical framework to ground my study firmly in it. And then based on that understanding, I have done a literature review where I have explained the historical context of Sri Lanka's ethnic problem. And then aftermath of civil war, reconciliation and higher education, what happened to higher education. And then role of universities in fostering inter-ethnic cohesion through diversity and inclusion. So the literature review is slightly longer here, and we have reviewed quite a lot of literature to help readers understand the role of universities in actually bringing this kind of change. And then we have written methodology. Here, if you go through the methodology, this explains how we did our study. We have utilized interpretative phenomenological analysis. So we have discussed about that entire process. And then in our findings, we have given some demographic characteristics of the study informants. And then thereafter, each subtopic indicates a specific finding. So student involvement drives inter-ethnic cohesion is a finding. And we have included verbatim from students that we have interviewed to help readers understand how exactly we came up with this particular finding. And then see, here's our next one, language barrier and campus involvement. And then we have our third one, subtle acts of discrimination and student perspectives on diversity and inclusion. And finally, our conclusion, like what are the implications of this study to to our practice, to theory, and also to policy. All of this is emphasized here. So I'm pretty happy about how this paper turned out to be, because we actually put some real hours into writing this. And usually writing a paper itself takes time, and to improve the quality, what it requires is patience. I think this is a good lesson for all the students. Why? Because a lot of students think that I write something, I then submit. No, you take your time. You write your draft, you improve it. That's the game. That's the whole game. You need to play it like that. And when you do it like that, you can make sure that you would always produce high quality research reports. So there are strengths and weaknesses of this. If you consider a review paper help us understand the problem, existence of a problem, but it doesn't give you any robust answer about the problem. Introspective report, it helps us understand our internal workings, thoughts, but it is not at all scientific. Now, qualitative research is also not scientific, but then again, it is very important to understand the depth of the problem. Now, in the qualitative research, we actually have explored the problem using a proper set of study participants. And at the same time, we have documented our findings as well, so that we can take that dialogue forward from there. So if someone wants to research this quantitatively, based on what we have generated, they can, take that forward as well. But if someone wants to do this qualitatively, still there's quite a lot of things to explore here as well. Now that's a qualitative paper. So I wrote two papers like this, qualitative research reports. It's available on my ResearchGate account if you want to read. And finally, let's go through a conference paper. Let me share my screen. Now what you see here is a conference paper. Now this is also something I wrote as part of my PhD. And then altogether I wrote 4 papers with my supervisors for the PhD. And then this is something that we presented in a conference in Indonesia. And what happened was, now this is not a usual like a research report that you would publish it. It's a research report, but we presented this in a conference, and then this was later peer reviewed, and then it is still under publication, but we have the entire thing here. So I anyways have uploaded this to ResearchGate, so I thought might as well just present it here as well. That's okay. So here, this is once again a qualitative research, and here we have given a title as well. We walk on the same corridors of our university. This is one of the statements, one of the verbatim from a participant. So contemporary reflections of Sinhala-Tamil relations in Sri Lankan public universities. Once again, we have given an abstract. This paper is very similar to the previous paper in terms of the structure. I have given some background. And if you notice here, our in-text citation system is different. This is Vancouver method. And then I have given research methods, but this method is different. This is a qualitative research, but this is not based on data that I have collected. I have collected, for my original study in the PhD, I collected data from 3 different sources. I did one-on-one interviews, focus groups, and document review. So this is based on that document review that I did. I analyzed publicly available documents like newspapers, media documents like newspapers, and then blog posts and things like that, social media. So based on that, I wrote another paper. So here the methodology is very simple, not very rigorous. We use a method called ready the documents, extract data, analyze data, and distill data. But qualitatively, we analyzed our data, the collected ones. And if you notice, here I have combined results and discussion. In some qualitative research papers, you will notice that results and discussions are combined. This is something that you don't usually see in quantitative report, because you can't combine results and discussion in quantitative reports, but this is more narrative in nature. So because of that, you can combine results and discussion. So I have listed the documents I used to do this document review. These are the documents. What are the significance of each of the documents that I have chosen, and what are my findings? So each one here is a theme, and each explanation is a verbatim extract. So there are different themes, once again, lack of inclusiveness, sensitivity, and all of that. And I have substantiated some of these with social media images that I have found as well. Publicly available, social media ones that are free to use. And I have given a conclusion as well. So this is also a form of research paper. Now, once again, here the strength is a conference paper is very good to get good amount of feedback on your work. And a research paper itself is not the end of the research. So with every paper, you get more feedback. With more feedback, you can improve your research. Now, those are the 4 major types of research that I wanted to discuss with you today: review papers, introspective reports, qualitative research reports, and a document review. And in addition to that, the last one that I wanted to say is how to do an action research. Action research is also another form of research where teachers do to understand, some unique problem in their teaching practice. Let me show you an example here. Give me a second. I'm just quickly going to the journal's website. Okay, here I'm going to just go to my archives and yeah. So let me share my screen here. Give me a second. Okay. So here I have some actually, there are different types of papers as well. Here, if you go through this paper, essential record keeping and reporting requirements of FM and J visa non-immigrants, this is a policy analysis. You can read the policy analysis as well. And this one is an action research, implementing a strategy to improve postgraduate student dissertation and evaluation feedback. So, as teachers, we experience certain problems in our practice. So, whenever we experience these problems, we can actually write research papers about it. So, this is a paper that we wrote to understand how to improve our student grading and feedback. So, here also I have given an executive summary, and then we have done a situation analysis, we have given some literature, and in addition to that, we have developed a strategic plan. How are we going to implement this system? Who are the people who are responsible towards achieving this and all of that? So uh, take your time to read through this as well. It's available in our journal, legaljournal.com, and you go through and read this, and this will help you understand how an action research works as well. Action research is mostly used in the field of education, as far as I know. I have done my second MSc in education, so there we use quite a lot of action research to understand a practical problem. And actually, it was the same action research. I did an action research for my MSc capstone as well. The capstone project was a what do you call action research, and the same action research uh, I upgraded to my PhD as well. So in the MSc, it was about understanding leadership of South Asian students, and later I converted that to a PhD for a much bigger study. So that is exactly how it went. So I hope I was able to give you some understanding about the kind of research requirement for the postgraduate degrees as well, but at the same time, how exactly you need to have a bigger understanding about different types of research. But there are more types of research papers. There are protocol research papers. If you are in fields like public health and so on and so on, there are protocol papers where people publish a paper about the method before they actually go ahead and do the study. You would find this in most of the scientifically rigorous fields. And then that is just another type of research paper. And we didn't discuss about a quantitative research paper here. I didn't write a quantitative paper in a long time, but sometime later, uh, in the next 2-3 months, we'll be publishing another protocol paper for a quantitative research. So once we have that, I'll take you guys through that as well. But for now, this is what I wanted to discuss, and I hope now you have some understanding about the purpose of each of these papers, basic structures, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of these papers. Okay, so papers in the sense these types of papers, not the paper. Okay, now that's the idea that I wanted to give today, and I'll meet you guys again with a similar video in future. So thank you very much.